Microfinance plays a crucial role in promoting financial inclusion, particularly in underserved regions. By leveraging mobile technology and branchless banking, we can reach populations with limited access to formal banking and offer them mobile wallets, credit, and savings products. But can financial inclusion really transform a community and unlock opportunities for millions of people? If so, then why do so many people in Pakistan remain excluded from formal financial systems? This isn't just a question. It's a challenge, and the solutions may be more nuanced than you might think. On the Asia Tech podcast, we want to investigate how innovative solutions and unconventional thinking can reshape financial services for the underbanked and underserved. From breaking down biases in lending to revolutionizing microfinance with technology, we want to understand the core solutions of financial inclusion in emerging markets. That is why we invited Kabeer Naqvi, the chairman of the Pakistan Microfinance Network, to come on the show. He is uniquely knowledgeable about how branchless banking was adapted to the needs of Pakistan, the importance of social inclusion in driving real financial inclusion, and the profound impact of empowering the underserved. Let's welcome Kabeer to the show. Before we jump in, let's thank the sponsor of this episode, Dr. Tech. Dr. Tech can help you build your e-commerce store and start selling quickly online and on social media in just a few days. And Dr. Tech stores are gorgeous, modern, and responsive. They are fully customizable and simple to use. Dr. Tech stores have hundreds of included optimizations that will help you sell more online, and a support team that can answer all of your questions. With Dr. Tech, there are no hidden costs, no commissions on sales, no add-ons to buy. Everything is included in one simple subscription. So go to hellodr.tech/ATP to get a free trial and start building your store. You can find the link in the description below. Also, Dr. Tech is offering a special deal to the listeners of the Asia Tech podcast. After your free trial, you can get your first full month for only $1. To get this deal, simply type ATP into the live chat and they will send you a special promo code. Thanks again to Dr. Tech for sponsoring, and now let's get back to the show. What percentage of the population, if you know this off the top of your head, is rural versus urban, right? Because I think that's going to drive some of these cultural changes as well. At least in my experience, it's been the case that the social changes happen in urban centers way before they happen in the rural centers. And I think this is true in every country where I've existed, whether that's in Bangkok in Thailand, in New York in the United States, or in Tokyo in Japan. How do you accelerate this change? And does it take a generation? Does it take 2 generations? And like, what has to change in the rural areas?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get this wheel, this flywheel to start turning?
Yeah. So Michael, very interestingly, so I'll give you slightly different perspective what you would see in the stats. So I've got this unique privilege of traveling 150,000 kilometers by road.
Inside the country?
Inside the country. Over the last 8 years. So the stuff that I've seen and my team, we have seen through our own eyes, that has given us a lot of perspective. So, whenever we say that, the urban population is increasing in Pakistan, yeah, that is true. But, what defines urban? Really,
yeah.
In my view, that's relative. You see, if people are not getting electricity, people are not getting clean water, and other means of life, and if they're still parked statistically in urban areas, as a practitioner, I feel that's not entirely true. So the idea is that, Pakistan, when you look at the smaller provinces like Balochistan, KPK, Punjab is 60% of the country, and Punjab is fairly far better. Even the rural part of the country, there is more productivity. The agriculture is doing it, and the country relies primarily on Punjab and followed by Sindh. If you have some idea from a distance about Pakistan, so I feel, I would still say that 70% of the population, from what I've seen with my own eyes, needs to be catered to and services have to be provided. I'm not getting into the urban-rural divide here, but I'm talking about enablement that is required. So I would say comfortably about 70% of the country needs help.
Can I ask you this? It's almost like I'm not a physicist at all, and I'm not even a great scientist, but I think I once read that like by merely observing some quarks, you change their performance, right? Or you change the things that they do, but merely by observing, you change. So I'm curious, like if you show up, if you've done 175,000 kilometers inside the country, at some point, people must know who you are when you show up. So how do you make sure that you're getting the right kind of information that you want to get and that your mere presence there doesn't change? You know what I mean? So like, how do you find out like why that woman needs to get permission from her husband without creating sort of internal family problems. I'm just kind of giving
Right.
one example, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And by the way, I am also a work in progress astrophysics junkie, so I know what you're talking about.
Do you
So,
know what I'm trying to say, at least?
so talking about that, and I'll tell you out of experience. When I started off, when we started these road trips to develop perspective, I realized, because when people knew, even in our branches, that the CEO is coming in a suit wearing guy with a lot many
Yeah,
people with him, obviously they would prepare for it. And there was a
right.
distance. We realized slowly, gradually, the suit went away, and I started wearing shalwar kameez. I have had no facial hair, believe me. Then the beard started getting bigger. On it, so it depicts a state of mind also. I feel. And then when I started going there, first of all, I had to, you know. What should I say, for lack of better words, really connect with our people first, the people in the branches, because we hire from the same communities in rural areas, in last mile where we open branches. And slowly, gradually, when we started meeting our clients, the part where they were intimidated by somebody coming from Islamabad or Karachi or running this institution, obviously they would not be very honest with you. They would maybe make up things for you, for maybe stuff that you want to hear. But slowly, gradually, what I did, and it was just not me, it was my entire team and the whole vertical, and we adopted these ways of becoming very comfortable down there in the field. And that is when magic happened, Michael, and we started getting the
For
right
sure.
information.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been saying this for years, right? I've lived outside my home country for more years than I've lived inside of it. And one of the things that I find out, right, is that if you don't know the local language and don't eat the local food, you can't understand the local culture at all. And I think that in a country as diverse as Pakistan as well, like I think the same things are true, right? And maybe the things you need to do there are different, but the idea of like being on the ground, maybe growing out the beard, wearing the local clothes and trying to fit in, and not just fit in, but understand what it's like to be there every day. That means you can, let's go all the way back to the banking and the financial inclusion, because you can sit in Punjab and try to figure out, like, here are the products that they need, but you can't really know until you're there watching them going, I can afford this thing, but I have no way to pay for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more at that level, like what you learned from the actual banking and the product development stuff, then that actually ended up changing the fortunes, not just of the bank where you worked,
Yeah.
but the people that you were serving, if that makes
So
sense.
before I get into it, I want to share an anecdote with you as to why my
Please.
love for the work I do developed really. So when
Yeah.
I started doing these road trips, and I would go from branch to branch 5 days in a row, 8 days in a row, thousands and thousands of kilometers, and my branch managers would know that I'm coming, and we had our own calendar, and we mastered the art of doing these road trips, right? So I got stuck in traffic, and I reached a city close to Lahore by the name Shadra, and we had opened a branch over there. And when I got out of the car, it was late, it was early evening, and there were a bunch of women, some middle aged, some younger, and they started throwing flowers to me before I was entering the branch. And I found it to be very
They
odd.
started
They were throwing
throwing flowers.
rose petals actually
Okay.
on me. And I entered the branch, and I asked my branch manager as to what's going on, why this whole thing, what's wrong with you? He was like, no, 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 sir. I asked them to leave many a times during the last 4 5 hours, but they stayed. And the lady, the older one, she wanted to meet you and say something to you. I was like, fine, why? Bring her in. And she came in, and in Punjabi, I'll translate it in English, obviously. And she said to me that, I heard that you were coming here, and you had opened this branch a few months ago. And I used to have a very small business where I used to make pottery at home and sell, and your branch gave us a loan. And this is a real testimonial. It's not something written or I've heard. This is something that happened to me and changed my perspective completely. And she said that I wanted to, kiss your hands and tell you that it's been like the hand of God. And I still have shivers down my spine when I'm quoting this, and I became teary as well. And she said, that my life has changed, and I'm making so much more money, and my children will now be going to school. And before that, Michael, I was a CFO in my previous job, and I was like lean, mean, money making machine, sort of, right? And when I started this, and when I met that lady, uh, everything changed for me. And I came back, thinking about it, what had happened to me, and from there on, we use this approach of the customer centric products. As you just asked me, you cannot, unlike maybe commercial bank CEOs, you may be able to run the bank on a golf course, but for microfinance, you need to be right out there with the field. And so we started developing these products, and you will be amazed. Our flagship product is credit backed by gold, Michael. So in this part of the world, you know, wherever you go, urban, rural, wherever people are sitting on a lot of gold, and we felt that this is a dead asset that can really be monetized, and then they have sentimental values attached to it. So the risk, it's a win-win for the bank as well as for the people there. So when I started this, many of the microfinance gurus said that, you're becoming a pawn shop, and, you're taking poor people's gold, and this is not the spirit of microfinance per se. Yes. I said, fine, maybe you feel this way, but let's ask my clients if they're happy getting a rate break and they're multiplying their businesses, and the bank expanding and can lend 5 times more given the capital adequacy requirements, without getting too technical. So that became our flagship product, and 7 years down, everybody followed suit, and there is so much gold in this country, and now we are developing different kind of products, and that's the flagship product for credit. And on savings, we're just like a commercial bank. We are mobilizing money from the urban centers, from people like you and me, and giving money in the rural centers, which is quite the opposite of what the larger banks do.
I was going to ask you earlier, like, how important is it for you to make change? But I don't think I need to ask that question to you after that story. It's weird, right? Like, I think I said this to you offline, but like, I used to work at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, and my brother, on the other hand, is a neurosurgeon. And I used to tell him, like, I'm not qualified to do anything except be your housemaid if I lose my job. And yet he's out there helping people every single day by doing like spinal surgery and brain surgery. So it's like living in a completely different world.
Wow.
I can't do what he does. But what you've done is you've made this transition, like you said, from being like a real strict, let's say, CFO, to finding out that like they're throwing rose petals at you, because at the end of the day, the stuff that you and the team were doing was literally changing their lives. And it's weird, right? Because once you start doing that, you can't stop doing it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You cannot stop doing it
Then how do you continue? Because here's the thing, right? If the biggest credit product in the country now is gold, right? Or that's the way you do this particular. How then do you make sure that you keep building new products as the economy grows and changes? Because like you said, once you start having inclusion, there are all these knock-on effects, right? There are second order impacts. One is I can now educate my children. I need to make sure that the young girls get the same education as the young boy. Like all these things you need to affect.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that all that stuff happens too?
So, Michael, the beauty of microfinance is that at the heart of it, it's graduation, and it's a full suite. It's not like a consumer loan, that you keep on, giving these people loan and they consume it. No, it's always linked to an activity, most part. At the end of the day, money is fungible. If some of the loans are utilized for other things also, you can't really control that. But bulk of it, the reason and what we do in our assessment also is that if I could just share the cycle with you. So there is a whole spectrum. There is a pyramid. We call it the poverty pyramid. We say the economically active poor. I don't like the term poor for my clients, but that's how the regulation describes it. So I'm repeating that.
Fair enough.
So when you go down in the pyramid, you see that there are safety net programs by governments in all parts of the world, similarly in Pakistan also. And then you come slightly above that, you've got the economically active poor segment, where people have some cash flow, they need more working capital, and they have some small activity on a farm or on a land or something, and then you start funding them. Now, the basic microfinance loan is a loan to finance working capital. Say, per se, I'll use an example of a small subsistence farmer, working on rented land. And then in second or third cycle, the size of the loan naturally increases. And then the regulation, the central bank has played a beautiful role in Pakistan, that they've evolved the regulation over the last 24 years. Now we can do low cost housing. We can do some part of consumer. There is so much more that we can do for the entire livelihood needs of that segment, that previously I was just allowed to give a 150,000 rupee loan. That's it. Now I can go up to 3 million and do a low cost housing also. And now we have made a case as chair of the network. What I'm trying to pursue with both the regulators, the State Bank of Pakistan and the SECP that regulates the non-banks, is increase in loan limits so we can do more farm machinery, because these clients, our clients over the years, have been graduating. Now what happens is that, when we cannot serve them anymore, they go to the SME banks. And now, S of the SME, I feel as a practitioner that S needs to be divorced from M. There needs to be a separate category for small, and small and medium should not be clubbed together, and so
Yeah.
people who graduate to the S, they need to be catered to. We call it the missing middle now, because the larger banks do not cater to them and we cannot. And that's a,
Right.
that's a problem we're facing nowadays. So there's a whole spectrum and a whole cycle of graduation, and different kind of institutions are serving, and it's increasing in terms of offering as we speak.
I just want to make a note about this because I do think this idea of the medium-sized companies and the small companies, again, they have completely different needs. And if you're set up to, I think what you're saying is, if I understand it correctly, if you're set up to handle the small ones and the big banks are still set up to handle like big commercial companies, well, then the medium-sized enterprises are just sitting there going like, who's talking to me? Right? Because neither is kind of set up properly for that. And the needs are definitely different. Before we get there, I want to ask you about this. You said you did 175,000 kilometers of travel, right? Which is awesome. But how do you encourage, because this idea of making change, right? It doesn't only happen with one person. And I'm not saying you're suggesting that. But we also said that like once you do it and once you see it, you can't unsee it and unfeel it. How do you get other people like you are, and even people that are just working with you, to do the same thing and have a similar experience? So when they go home, they prefer to work inside the Pakistan Microfinance network teams and banks and stuff, as opposed to just go working at a big commercial bank where everything is kind of, and I'm going to put it in quotes, easy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But so they can get that feeling of, oh my gosh, I just changed that person's life. And if you look at it over a long enough life cycle, that young girl who may have had no opportunities before is now at Stanford, which was unthinkable a generation ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you get people to experience that?
Yeah. So Michael, as human beings, you would know better than me. You talk to more people than I do, clearly.
I don't know about that, but go ahead.
Is that not everybody is the same, right? So, and it's always a spectrum. So the team and I, many people dreaded the road trips. Yes. And that's fine. I never held it against people. Many people were in there for impact, but they had their own limitations also, and that's again should be respected. uh, there are a lot of bankers, because we are a bank after all. People working in commercial banks also join us, and from investment banks they join us, from telecom they join us also. Not everybody really crosses over that threshold of what I just shared with you. Maybe you and I share, the want, the will to change lives. That's fine. But the good part is that we were 5,000, and bulk of them were in the field already, because they were in the branches, the brick and mortar setup that was there. And in the head office, the top team, the people who really had to really believe in it, they did. My two lieutenants, interestingly, in Pakistan, you don't have two successors and both ladies. It's very rare. And I'll take their names, Mariam Pervez and Amreen Malik. These were the two ladies who were being groomed for my role. And they were on the road trips with me through and through. And can you imagine, the roadside washrooms and the eateries we had to use, the infections that we got earlier on, and then we mastered it, and we got the antibiotics and the sanitizers and all, and we were trained. But they cared. So I never pushed it, will never do that. But you will always find a bunch of people, Michael, who are like-minded and who are driven by certain things, and I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by a bulk of them.
Awesome. I want to talk about children, right? Because I do think that a lot of this stuff starts, like if you start early on in life, educating people. I wish somebody had taught me more about finance when I was 12 years old, as opposed to when I was 25 years old. I won't say it was too late at 25, but boy, it would have helped a lot. I mean, compounding a loan is just something you should learn when you're 12, right? Every 25 cents you put in the bank could be worth way more when you're 25. What is the educational process like in Pakistan? How would you characterize like what the status is of it? And again, just in the context of everything else we've been talking about.
Yeah. So, Michael, it's very sad what I'm going to share with you. We have statistically, what is the formal number? It's again dated 6-7 years ago. 26.6 million children are out of school.
That's a lot.
And that's a lot. And I'm sure, sadly, the number must be much higher now when the next survey happens. Maybe we are over 30 million now. And that's very heartbreaking. And when you get out of the Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, the three big cities, and you go 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers out, it's a different country. And there is so much to be done. And there are different education I would say, benchmarks. You've got the Cambridge system that the people who are more affluent can afford. Then you've got the Pakistani different boards. Punjab has different, Sindh has different, all provinces. That again, there is disparity there in terms of your ability to land into good jobs. If you are studying from the British system, it's different. Then you've got the government
Yeah.
schools, and I'll talk about it very openly. There are a lot many ghost schools in the country also. When you go into peri-urban and rural where the funding is there, but when you go there, there is nobody there. There's just this old
Oh no.
building, and nobody studies there, nobody teaches there. So a lot of reform, and not that the governments don't care. The governments do care, and they're trying to make strides to. But I think the private sector needs to come together, and that's one more area that our work as the microfinance sector or individual institutions we're working towards, and we are incentivizing parents also to send their children to school and to create
Yeah.
opportunities, to give them maybe rate breaks and tailor it somewhat. Plus low cost, just like low cost housing, school financing, smaller areas, a building with 2 rooms, money to make 2 3 more classrooms, pay the teachers, manage their salaries. So but again, to take it to scale, Michael, a lot of work is required, because sadly the size of the problem is growing faster than we are growing at the moment.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Can I ask you this? This is ostensibly a tech podcast, and I look at everything through like a tech productivity filter. And the answer to this question is not always yes. Plenty of times it's no. But is there a technological solution, a startup solution? You just mentioned private enterprise, right, as well. And is there a way, and maybe you're already doing this, but I'm just curious, right, to work with, and not just in Pakistan, but globally, to work with like ed tech companies, fintech companies, insurtech companies, right? Because all these things kind of work together to promote all of the things that you're trying to work on? Is there a technology solution, and not just one override? There's no magic wand, right? But is there a way to infuse tech into all this? Because you said earlier, and I loved this word, the teledensity is high.
Yeah.
People have access to the internet, I'm thinking, right? So if the teledensity is high, how can you take advantage of that technological fact to then do to accomplish all these other things you want to accomplish?
Yeah. So the clear answer to that is absolutely yes. And there are a lot of fintechs, private sector companies, telecoms. We are trying to solve this problem collectively. Microfinance network is at the forefront of it as well. And that, as to how do we get to these children? I just described the problem of getting to women when we started off. Similarly, we need to get to these children, and there are new edtechs coming in, fintechs coming in. They are trying to mobilize. It's sort of a movement that's going on in Pakistan right now. These are early days, nothing much to write home about. I told you the scale right now that is required, but I'm sure we will get there. And at this point, I would say that maybe, in my view, what I've seen on the road, over the next 5 to 7 years, we will see positive material change, because I think there is realization in the government also, whichever government it is, irrespective, that this needs to be taken care of. Because, Michael, we are talking about children. I just want to end this by saying this: 64% people in Pakistan are less than the age of 35. And if they're not given any vocational training or education, imagine 15 years from now, when bulk of them are getting middle aged and with no productivity, it would become the biggest liability. So we're sitting on a time bomb if we don't act now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that people used to say when I was still living in Japan was Japan got rich before they got old as a country. And some countries out there get old before they get rich, and it's just super problematic because, like you said, the productivity numbers just go down superbly, but the necessities for those older people don't change then as if they were in a wealthier country. So it turns out into a complete nightmare. Do you think about the venture capital space as well? Like, where does that fit into these technology solutions? And are you feeling like that's making enough progress too, or what can be done to make it faster, particularly in the context of the government looking around going, do we need to do more of this?
Right. So without sharing too many details that I cannot right now for obvious reasons, the project that I'm working on, this will be the first of its kind. I'll share that much, where venture capital money will be invested into a microfinance bank. This will be the first in Pakistan. And so there is this space that they're looking at now, and they understand our mission pretty well. and we will make and these people plan on making a digital proposition also along with the brick and mortar. But I feel that they are venture debt, venture capital. These people are now seriously looking at Pakistan, and I'm working on one such assignment as we speak.
I don't know what to say now because I can't ask you anything more, but I do have a lot of questions about this. I do have a lot of questions about this. Oh my. And are there other sectors where this is happening too? Again, if you can't talk about your own, we'll get you back on the show once this is public because I do want to find out more about how that works. You said venture debt too, right? Not just venture equity, which makes things just as interesting. But are there other industries that are being impacted by this? Ed tech, fintech. I mean, not just fintech, ed tech and other places, health tech, right? All these other places.
Yes, this is happening now. So again, as I said, these are early days, and there is realization here, and plus because of the, what happened, what we suffered from in terms of the dollar rupee parity and economic cycle
Yeah.
that we've been going, that has made things a bit depressed. But I feel that in a year or so, we should be on track. So things have been a bit slow. If this did not happen in between what we faced last 3 years, I feel that there would have been much more stuff I would have been sharing with you right now. But I haven't given up hope.
Sure. You're at the perfect age to start something brand new anyway.
Thank you.
Don't you think? I say this all the time. It's like if you think about what you knew when you were 25 and what you know today, you know way more. And actually what you understand is you know way less, but you have way more perspective, which makes decision making so much easier because you have so much more experience. All this stuff you thought at 25, you're like, oh, none of that's true. Or maybe even if it is true, there's so much stuff I don't know, but that's going to make me a better decision maker. And frankly, I think it makes you a better startup founder. So congratulations there. I want to ask you one more thing and then I'll let you go. What does progress look like to you? So if you say like in a bunch of stuff's going to happen in 7 years. If I get you back on the show in 7 years, we'll get you sooner than that. But if I do in 7 years, what's the thing that's going to make you happy? Like this thing I really wanted to happen, or these, again, this spectrum of things that I wanted to happen, which is a great word, by the way, did happen. What are those things?
So without, making it a very cliche kind of a statement.
Yep. I don't want it to be at all, actually.
Yeah, I'm just saying it at the outset. Maybe it'll sound like that, because of the work I do. So that's at the outset I wanted to clarify. These children who are out of school, I would like to see bulk of them in school. This is one of the major driving forces behind what we do. And secondly, the subject of women, we discussed offline also, stuff that I shared, and I feel for economic reasons, if for nothing else, they need to be part of the workforce and rather quickly. And in 7 years, I feel the strides that the government and the private sector is making, and the message is being put across with the help of friends like you also. I feel that we will be in a far better situation. I would like to see Pakistan like that in 7 years. When we talk, we will keep on talking before that also. But when we speak in 7 years, inshallah, then I would like to see these two things in a better state.
Okay. That's a great way to end. I cannot thank you enough for doing this. Kabeer Naqvi, the chairman of Pakistan Microfinance Network. This was awesome. I'm so glad you said yes to come on the show. This was as good, if not better, than I thought it was going to be. I really appreciate your time, and absolutely let's do more. Open invitation, yeah?
Thank you very much, Michael. I loved speaking with you. Thank you very much.